Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. I'm going to get things started with this week's X-Men books, followed by our miscellaneous Marvel books. Kicking things off with Cable number 4. Where we left off with Cable. Cable, having retrieved the time machine from his the cybernetic arm of his dead older self, because time travel. He had retrieved the time machine in order to help the Space Knights potentially prevent the destruction. Help the Space Knights potentially prevent the destruction of their world, so that they could then have their be restored to their physical their living bodies, as opposed to, well, robot bodies that they're in. Anywho, so we begin with a history lesson on Galador. And apparently the Galadorians experimented on their own people. Political prisoners and petty thieves, they had their brains put into, well, war machines. The Space Knights. They were promised full pardons and return to their original bodies once, their service was done. And a lot of the Space Knights that trusted that promise apparently went back to Galador and were decommissioned. Smart ones put their backs to the planet forever. However, the three that have since appeared, or that have come after the light of Galador, Tark, Brack, and Kron, they wanted vengeance. So they tried to find the light of Galador. They lost track of the sword in our galaxy, and to conserve their robot bodies, they hibernated on a desolate world. And while they hibernated, Galador was destroyed. They were put into a museum, and when the sword was drawn, it woke them up. However, currently, because Cable has offered to help them, get their initial goal, they're going off book from their plan, which their plan initially being to kill Cable and Esme Cuckoo. And they've also killed, or summoned, not killed, they've summoned the other Space Knights. So, it's demanded that the Cable show the Space Knights how to use the time machine. So he opens up the arm, and him and Esme communicate telepathically. She tells him that, you can't just give him a time machine, which he knows, and he's trying to think of something. He says it's funny that he's got a time machine, he doesn't have enough time to sabotage it. And then he closes the panel and says, "Unless I do, what about all the time in the world?" So he reopens it. Now, into the time device is a small nuclear device. So Cable suggests that tells them the time machine appears to be working, but suggests that they not use it in the city because the Time Variance Authority is powerful, and there have been heists and assassinations. So they go to the southwest of the continent. So they teleport out to the desert. And Cable tells Esme telepathically to reach into one of his hip pouches. So it's his only way out of there if they want to avoid Arbor Magna. It is, of course, a Krakoan portal flower. or gate flower. But Cable continues on to Esme, saying he always wondered why his future self didn't time jump away when he was hunting him. Because he couldn't. Not without a time machine in his arm. We have a flashback to Cable putting the bomb in his arm. And then to young Cable killing older Cable and saying you really should have seen this coming. And apparently Cable's last words were, "I did." So Esme plants the door. As Cable preps the bomb, which is actually designed to operate to sound like it is actually a time machine. The Space Knights tell the machine they want to go back 3,000 years. The gate then forms, but one of the Space Knights realizes that he's picking up a fission reaction. Cable tries to explain that, totally normal. All the best time machines need plutonium. Well, yeah, the Space Knights realize they've been deceived, and so they attack Esme and Cable. The attack is stopped, and Cable retakes the Light of Galador. And then he and Esme go through the gate as the bomb goes off. Cable says that was probably his biggest body count yet, well, at least at this point in his life. Then Emma shows up on horseback, not happy with the fact that the two of them are over a day late. And then Emma makes it clear that she is watching Cable. Emma and Esme ride off. And we also get a text portion. Ultra low frequency data burst. Zarek, the Light of Galador, is currently on Earth and is in the hands of a young Terran cyborg named Nathan Summers, aka Cable. All pertinent information is being uploaded to you now. In 1.5 seconds, I, along with the remaining Ronin of Galador, will meet a fiery end in a crude atomic detonation. We underestimated the Terrans, and the ruling class of mutants in particular. Suggest extended observation before striking. The subject has exhibited telekinesis and weapons training, and only too late did we understand they are also telepathic. We became greedy and diverted from the planet to try to acquire a time machine. The planet is largely still dependent on carbon, but not the subject's clan. They display a high degree of technological prowess and likely non-linear dimensional travel. Someday in the future you will wake up to this grim news. Perhaps you are not the last Galadorian knight, but we know of no other. Let it be known that at the moment of the fission blast there are Braca, Tark, Kron II, Black Star, Vive, 00010011, Sorn, Vorn, S101 0001 0111 011 0111 01001 001, and that is it. And that's where it ended. There's also a note from the X-Desk to Detectives Melina DeStefano of the Philadelphia PD. Saw your report about mutant contact. Let me know how this plays out. In return for sharing what you find, here's a down payment. Look at the Order of X. See attached files and transfer the chats between burners we found in the phone of a detainee. You're welcome from your friends at the X-Desk. From a blocked Philly number. M. I know you said to only write an emergency, but after we exfiltrated the last arrival to you, we returned to find that our safe house was destroyed in a battle involving mutants. There is nothing for anyone to find to connect the order to the location. Blocked Bucks County PA number. You killed the dog? Blocked Philly number. There was no time. Senior noticed the baby was missing much quicker than anticipated. I was going to kill the dog now, but it's been recovered. Are you sure that is a priority? Blockbuck's county number, once again. Kill the dog and then yourself. If you fail on either task, then your sins will be inherited by your family and they will pay heavy interest. Do not write back. Acknowledge receipt of fate by simply giving me a thumbs up on this message. And there's a thumbs up on the message. Back on the moon, Cable has returned home. Explains that, says hi, but he's got to bounce. Though Cyclops tells him he's over a day late for yesterday's dinner, and he hopes everything's okay. Jean suggests that Cable wash up and help her set the table, but he says that he can't. He'll grab something on the run. He's got to chase down the Order of X because they're kidnapping mutant babies. Jean then asks where he's been for the last day. Then he explains that some space knights came looking for a sword. They were going to use his powers to remake their homeworld here, but they won't bother anybody again. And he met Deadpool for the first time. What a lunatic. But he also adds that Deadpool seemed super bummed out. Maybe it's because they're not. Maybe it's because him and Deadpool aren't friends, or because he has no friends, or he's stuck with those monsters. But he doesn't think he wants to figure Deadpool out. Cyclops suggests that Cable keep his distance from Deadpool, and also they could talk at dinner. Or Jean does. That's right. But Cable says that he can't. He has to go back out, see X-Force about Singer's baby, and then Cyclops tells him to slow down. And they'll sort all of that together. Also, that apparently Corsair is coming for dinner. Cyclops wants to hear all about the Space Knights that Cable beat up, as presuming that Cable had no choice. And he figures that maybe he has time for dinner before he goes back out. And so at the dinner table we've got Cable, Prestige, Havoc, Jean, Cyclops, and of course Corsair. And the issue ends with Cyclops giving some advice to his son. Don't be in such a hurry to grow up. And that's where the issue ends. And this will actually be the last issue of Cable before the beginning of Ten of Swords. And in fact, the next issue of Cable will be part of the Ten of Swords story. Moving on to New Mutants, number 12. Where we'd left off, the New Mutants had learned of the website Docs, and they wanted to get some information. Namely magic, because Docs had been responsible for quite a bit. The issue begins in Nova Roma, hidden within the Amazon rainforest, and where issue number 8, I believe, took place. A couple Centurions come out. They find a strange footprint in the jungle. They wonder what kind of creature left it. Well, the creature appears and smashes one of them in the face, and the keeper of the beast tells her creatures to follow the one trying to escape. At the Green Lagoon, Trinary is meeting with Magic early in the morning. She has the information about Docs. And has placed it on a Crow and thumb drive. Also, Magic orders another drink for herself as well as one for Trinary. By the way, it's nice to see Trinary being remembered after her stint in X-Men Red. She was actually pretty interesting. Apparently, it didn't take Trinary very long at all to get all the information that Magic was looking for. And Trinary also states that everything Magic wants to do, she can do from the island. There's no reason for Magic to go to all the trouble. But Magic feels this is something that's best done face to face. So we get another text-based portion. Krakoan Gate reports from Docs. Departures and arrivals from New York. An unknown mutant. presumably there's a picture. There would be a picture attached normally to say, okay, well, this is who it is. Let us know if you figure out who. Let us know. In DC, we get arrivals for Storm, Phoebe, Sophie, and Esme Cuckoo from Marauders when Storm went to speak with the X-Desk operative. London, we also have noted arrival of Pete Wisdom, as well as Megan Braddock. And so, we're now in Columbus, Ohio, where Docs has its headquarters. Right across the street from one of the gates. And Ileana and her team, Danny Moonstar and Glob Herman, well, they're going to take care of business, basically. Of course, they're already being filmed. But Magic wants Docs to see them coming, reminding Glob that everything that happened in Pilger, as well as the deaths of Beak's parents, the attack on Glob and the others, was because of Docs. Maybe it's time for a little payback. As they go into the building, Danny reminds Ileana of the first law of Krakoa: kill no human. And Ileana's well aware, and does state that just because she can't kill anyone doesn't mean that she can't hurt them so badly that they would welcome death just to end the pain. So the head of Docs sees the X-Men coming, orders the door locked, tells all of his people film everything. And so they enter, and Danny takes one of the laptops, plugs in the Krakoan thumb drive, explains that they see Docs watching them. They read the reports from the army of bloggers tracking their every movement, and they want to make sure that Docs understands what they're doing, the cost of their actions, the consequence of their actions. She puts up a picture. Annie Hayes, 32, a mother of 2 young children, a mutant, killed by a lunatic who'd been tracking her using Docs. Next up, Devin Cole, 27, shot multiple times on his way to a gate in Los Angeles, dead before he hit the ground. Kristen Egilsdottir of Iceland, 14, beaten by her schoolmates after being outed by Docs. Currently in a vegetative state, likely never to recover. Nash Sawley, father of 4 in Australia, beaten in his home in front of his children. He survived but will never walk again. Danny states that all of them suffered at the hands of the readers of Docs, because they treat mutants as something to be feared and provide the tools for those who seek to bring them harm. The head of Docs states, you can't pin that on us. Stated that the moment they move to create their own nation and develop new medicines which they could then hold hostage unless they accepted it. Well, a new world where they can dictate, where mutants get to dictate policy. Well, yeah, it's the mutants' fault, obviously. They drew the battle lines. They set the stage and they escalated the war. He then we get it. You're going to take us down. Fine. The voice of this, the voice of criticism, silencing the voice of criticism is how the new world order works. He also states that blaming the actions of a few lunatics on the entirety of the site. The site only reports. They don't tell people to go out there and attack others. They don't condone murder. However, Leon does point out they're not dissuading him. They post names, addresses, photos, so they don't get to pretend they're innocent. They may not be the gun, but they do provide the bullets. And Danny explains they're not going to shut down the website. That wouldn't serve the mutants and would only turn docs into martyrs. But they're going to ensure that docs report responsibly. The thumb drive is updated their system. Every time that they post, every time they expose a location, home, or whereabout of any mutant, the reporter's full name and address will appear alongside the article, which they believe is only fair. Ileana's saying, dox us, we dox you back. Tit for tat. And they leave, and, well, the head of docs makes, basically says, you haven't won anything here. They have the footage. You guys are trying to stifle free speech. It threatened our lives. And we're going to crucify you. Magic asks if that was a threat, and turns to take the guy on. Only to have Glob Herman push her aside and punch the asshole himself. Explaining to the guy that all his life he's had to deal with people like the guy who runs docs. Even when he tried to avoid them. Even when he tried to keep to himself, to stay out of their way. They went out of their way to find him. To make his life a living hell. And he says that if one more mutant is hurt because of the website, he will come back there and he will kill them. Even if killing him means he has to spend the rest of his life in a dank hole of a prison. He doesn't care. It'll be worth it. And Ileana pulls Glob off of him. And as they leave, she tells the people of Docs that this is to consider this a warning and that there will not be another. The next screenshot from Docs simply says that Docs is down for temporary maintenance. They'll be back online shortly. Back in Nova Roma, the creatures have killed all but the entirety of the population, except for Senator Aguila, Magma's father. Turns out this woman wants to know who it was that killed her babies. Well, the senator does not wish to tell. And so she puts another one of her babies inside of him, explaining that what it does is it feeds on organs, slowly. And through feeding, it develops and releases a secretion that helps repair the damage done by the feeding. This creature will keep the senator alive and in a great deal of pain as it grows inside of him. And once the senator's done as he asks, she'll remove the creature. The senator seems to be intent on not telling her. Back on Krakoa, Glob is feeding his chickens, and he talks about his life. Apparently, his dad was an anti-mutant bigot. And Glob grew up hating mutants because his dad hated them. His friends hated them. The hatred of mutants consumed their lives. And the people the X-Men see holding up signs saying "Mutie go home," or "Go home, Mutie," or "Die, Mutie, die." That was people like his dad and his dad's friends. Anytime mutants became within driving distance of where they lived, Glob's dad would drag him out to protest with him. Apparently he's never told anyone about his family before. And it seems he was abused after his mutation manifested. So one night, Glob's mother snuck into his room and woke him up and stuck him out of the house. Left him at Xavier's, kissed him on the forehead, and told him not to call home. Because at first he hated the school. He was stuck with mutants. He was raised to hate mutants. But then he realized that, okay, yeah, this is where I belong. I am one, so yeah. But he was still mad. Mad at humans for everything they'd done. Everything his dad had done to him. And he lashed out and lashed on other kids who weren't feeling the same, and they kind of fed off each other. And he was full of anger. And one day, he realized he was continuing the same cycle. And he wanted and needed to be better. And he's been trying hard. He's been happy on Krakoa. Like, they've got this thing that's theirs, and they can live the life they were meant to. You know, they shouldn't be afraid anymore. And seeing that guys at docks wouldn't leave them alone, and just wanted the mutants to suffer, well, the running of his dad and Glob broke. He let his anger take over again, and he just kind of hated the way it felt. And Magic reassures him that a little anger is good for the soul. And his anger shows how deeply he cares. She adds, as long as he doesn't let it consume him or corrupt who he is, there's no reason not to let it out once in a while, especially when justified. And don't let it weigh too heavily on his he's also told not to let it weigh too heavily on his soul. And reminded that they did a good thing today and they saved some lives. And that is where the issue ends. Much like with Cable, the next issue will be part of the Ten of Swords crossover. Which then brings us to Wolverine number 5. Where we left off in Wolverine, some people who had been wronged by, probably some people that were at least checked out Docs on occasion, had managed to drug and kidnap Wolverine and were going to freeze him. Only their plans were interrupted by Omega Red and the Vampire Nation. And as the issue begins in Canada, and Wolverine is frozen in a block of ice. Dracula and 2 others are there. They drill into him. And pour out some of his blood, which the 3 Dracula and his cohorts then each place on their chests, putting their blood clogs. It allows them to be daywalkers. Dracula then tells his 2 lackeys that they will carry on with what they're... The 2 of them will carry on with the work they're doing in Canada. Dracula himself has a nation to run. There's also a breakdown of Wolverine's blood group system. Just kind of, how it all works. As well as distribution of blood types. And at the border, the 2 vampires are crossing with a truck. Border Patrol tells, got it inspected. Well, yeah, they turn the 2 vampires turn the guy and throw him in with the rest of the meat. Back at the cabin at the farm that Wolverine's being kept at, 3 young vampires show up, opting to steal him and ride off on their snowmobiles. However, as they're going, the block of ice starts to crack, and Wolverine gets loose. And he's not happy. Which, hey, I mean, would you be happy you'd been frozen ice for who knows how long? I don't think so. In Minneapolis, the vampires have arrived and stopped their truck and let loose their newly turned brethren. Back in Canada, the 3 young vampires are running scared from Wolverine, not sure, hoping they've lost him, but he catches up to them. And they explain they were actually trying to rescue him. and going on to explain that. But Wolverine at least takes his time to listen rather than just, start slicing and dicing. Turns out that these vampires have been feeding off of animals. And so he's informed he's in Ontario, north of Thunder Bay. But that's really all they know. And yeah, Dracula was there when Wolverine was brought to Ontario. However, Omega Red was not with him. We then get a letter to Louise, the vampire hunter that Wolverine met back in issue 1. Louise, I ever needed you, you said to find the loose floor tile in Saint Julien La Pavre. The one with the cross scratched into it. So that's what I did. And if you're reading this, it means you found my note. I think I know what happened in the catacombs. They let us go, but they took my blood with them. Because it strengthens them. Juices them up. Dracula walks by day now, and he ain't the only one. Because of me. That's one more blood debt for me to settle. You told me the vampire nation is growing their army, and you were right. Up north, they're taking out the small towns, places where the mines and sawmills are shut down, places where people are just scraping by. There's not as much noise when they go dark. Vamps turn them and truck them into the cities and let them swarm the human buffet. Can't imagine that's the only corner of the globe they're targeting. I don't know what you and your night guard are doing to turn the tide, but I've done my part to help the vamps, and now I'm doing my part to hurt them. Bet you'll figure out how to find me, but if not, just howl at the moon. Logan. Later on, Logan gets gets the lowdown. Hey, yeah, what he just told Louise, and it's explained that the only town within 100 miles that hasn't fallen yet is Black River Falls. Wolverine comments that they're next. So, but he opts instead to make them a few steaks. After all, they know where the next attack is going to be, so... In Black River Falls, Dracula's two lackeys show up, turn a local drunk, when Wolverine and his vampiric allies show up on snowmobiles. Smashing up their truck, and yeah. The young vampires are... Well, two of the young vampires are killed, but Wolverine manages to take down the two elder vampires. With one of them explaining... why they didn't just keep him. Because if they kept him, then the mutants would come after him. And they weren't ready for that yet. So he smashes her blood clock and then kills her. Saying time's up for her and Omega Red. That is where... That's almost where the issue ends. Later on, while walking through the forest, the Rainbow Bridge appears. And while Logan protests, explaining he's got shit to do, Heimdall, the keeper of the bridge, explains that his concerns matter little and he is needed elsewhere. He's then promptly redeposited where he was taken from, though. Battered and a little bloody. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to Guardians of the Galaxy number 6. Where we left off, the two teams of Guardians actually seem to, end up working eventually together. It helped that the two moon dragons merged into one, but yeah, things keep going all right. So we began on Half World. Nova's in therapy, starting therapy, asking how he does this, and we get some flashbacks to his life. He still doesn't have to do anything. He just kind of remembers all the various times he stated that it's all up to him, including when he most recently recruited Rocket and Star-Lord to help him. Also, we had a flashback to him as a kid with his dad saying that he shouldn't need help, and if someone needs doing it, it's up to him to do it to get it done. So, Nova regales his therapist about what happened on Daggett's world, and how afterwards, apparently, the combined teams of Guardians fought off the robot guards of the evil corporation together. And then there was a big after party, and apparently Hercules and Nova are hooked up. And there's also some stuff going on with Moondragon and Phyla-Vell, but if you get to that, well, they'll be there all day. Which apparently is fine. But he brings up he didn't bring up that he got his friend Peter Quill killed. His best friend. He explains, I asked that he asked for help for fighting gods. Peter came, he died. Nobody doesn't know what else to call it. And so therapist says, and Gamora blamed you. He says, sure, I blame me. I shouldn't have needed help. So as he got out of the healing tank a few days later, went to a bar called Gosnell's on Dolomian. If you're a vet, it's half price, so word spread fast that was the new place. They do a pretty good Centaurian wheat beer. He'd had a couple, he was in a good mood for once. He saw Gamora at the bar, and there was too big of a coincidence, so he went to talk to her. So, they talked. And eventually they ran out of gossip. They talked about them. Side note: a sticking point with some comic fans is the fact that in the wake of the success of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Marvel did basically kind of say, "Oh, well, in the movie, Star-Lord and Gamora are together, so they're going to be together in the comics now." To hell with what's been said already about with her and Nova. It actually is kind of a bone of contention for me as well a little bit, but I can forgive it. But they talk about it all. And they met during the first Annihilation War, and that was a plot point that, yeah, they were totally sleeping together. She'd go off and play assassin, he'd go off and play general, and yeah. But she explains that apparently she was in love with him. It was after the war. Long after. But he was lost in the Cancerverse, and she missed him. Wanted to know what had happened, so she hurt Star-Lord until he told her what he'd done. What he said. Apparently what he said was he thinks he's in love with Gamora and has been for a while. And he imagined a time where one day he could convince her to just be happy. And apparently she loved him for that. Though the therapist doesn't think that Nova believed her, and he kind of says, loving me, it's kind of a reach, isn't it? But she explains that it would never. She realized after a while it wouldn't work because he's like her. He never comes home. They never will. And the dreams that he had, they're just words. A few pretty words for his tombstone. She has that she's not at her father, and she can't love a tombstone. And she explains why she gave her heart to Peter. Because he was the place that Richard and her could only describe. He was home. He was alive. And then she figures that basically, Nova, apparently she kind of figures Nova got him killed because he was jealous of that. And apparently then he opened his big mouth and but he loved him too. Nova loved, Richard loved Peter as well. Apparently, though, that makes it worse. And so the therapist asks, okay, why did you care so much for him? Nova's got a lot of friends in his life. What made Star-Lord, Peter Quill, special among them? And he says it's because he had his back. From the second they met, he always had Nova's back. And that's why he died. It's how Nova got him killed. The therapist asks, if Nova believes that. He says, Nova says, I made him fight gods, and he died. What would you call that? And he says he should have gone in alone, and he's the Nova Prime, and he's doing it up to him. He shouldn't need help. And he's asked if he's reminded of what he's done. He stood when all else fell, and the universe the galaxy remembers. That's part of why people would love him. And the therapist asks if Nova can accept that he deserves that love, that he deserves help. And he's not sure. Maybe. And he's explained that, as upkeep for the facilities is paid by the Shi'ar Veterans Program, and all Annihilation War veterans are registered as honorary Shi'ar. Treatment is free at the point of delivery. So Nova puts his helmet back on and finds that space is so civilized. And so he sets up an appointment for next week, same time. And Rocket goes to pick him up, and Nova does kind of admit maybe he needed the help. And Rocket is at least kind of supportive, don't let this undo your progress, but if you scan the news feeds yet, this is, search under Empire and don't freak out. And, well, yeah, he kind of freaks out. After all, full-on Kree-Skrull alliance that went to Earth and the Kotati got involved. And then apparently we read how it ended. With Rocket saying this changes everything, so, what are we going to do about it? That is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our final book for the video, Marvel Zombies Resurrection, #1. You may recall a few months ago, there was a Marvel Zombies one-shot. A bunch of heroes went off into space, apparently found the corpse of Galactus. But there was more inside, and it turned them, and they headed towards Earth. So the Hive arrived, and we see various zombified heroes and villains going after people on the street. Peter and Mary Jane are in the Fantastic Car trying to get Valeria and Franklin out. They're attacked by a zombified vulture, and the Fantastic Car gets damaged. It crashes as a zombified Human Torch comes along and smacks Peter out of the Fantastic Car. Apparently, it was all a nightmare. His group of survivors had woken him up. The group being Carla Soffin, Moonstone, Forge, Valeria Richards, and Franklin Richards. Though only one of those two has gotten any older. So they're making their way through, and Valeria. Oh, also part of their group is Chewie the Flurkin. Franklin and Valeria are arguing. When some zombies pop up, and Forge uses his gun to zap some of them. Apparently, the gun itself utilizes as part of it the skull of Cyclops. Chewie also eats the remains, and yeah. But there's a noise. They kind of notice that there's no metaspawn with this group. But that noise continues. Bam! Forge realizes exactly who it is and begins firing wildly. And manages to cut Nightcrawler in half with an energy blast. When the last part of the fire party arrives, Nana, a reprogrammed Sentinel, reprogrammed to act like a British nanny. They continue on, and apparently Forge has been blindly leading the group of survivors to the remains of the Xavier School. With Forge noting that the mansion had gardens, generators, weapons, and a fallout shelter with enough food to last 500 years. If it's looted, they'll find something they need. Maybe even a ship. So they decide to go in, and Franklin asks if Nana had ever been there, but Nana explains she has no memory of her time before Franklin took her in. Peter insists that Nana stay outside, keep on the watch for any respawn. And Carla Moonstone asks Peter an interesting question. If he's ever going to tell the kids why Franklin's powers are gone and why he's not aging. He says he's not going to. And then Forge talks about the last time he was there. Apparently, a new class of students had just come in. Some little fights broke out, but they were just nervous. Beast was in charge that day, and Forge states that he always thought Beast was the best teacher in the place, the best with the kids, the most patient. And it's a damn shame he was given the name Beast. And there's writing, some rantings written on the walls. And we learn about deadheads. Deadheads being sickos who used to worship the respawn. They thought they were the next step in evolution, the heirs to mutant kind or something. Moonstone explains she early in the invasion she heard reports that respawn nests like to keep deadheads around as long as they kept bringing them other people to feed on. But they hear a noise in the pantry. And so they go in, and they find a bunch of people. And they help them get out, and one of the people they found sees the Spider-Man's costume underneath his shirt, and so she remembers him and says "God bless you" to him before she leaves. And so they find the deadhead. They do find the deadheads. Forge is not happy with them, though the deadheads in question are like, "Oh, it's actually one of the X-Men." But their leader's like, doesn't matter. When the All-Strong gets here, they're not. These survivors aren't going anywhere. And the leader of the Deadheads says, hey, they brought you offerings. Begins saying his little Deadhead prayer when it's revealed to be Beast that he's saying it to, as Beast eats the man's head off and then goes after Forge. And, well, Forge gets ripped in half. Dana, however, with a bit of an assist from Chewie, at least stop Beast for a moment, and then Peter takes him down. But Franklin goes to talk to the head, which is still alive. Well, I mean, as alive as a zombie can be. Beast explains that his family is with him. He whose hunger will cleanse all worlds, and they wait for you. Beast then goes on to add that the Galactus Hive gathers armies in the backspring, the world behind the world, where the ending begins. However, Moonstone destroys the head, and Franklin's actually kind of mad because maybe Beast could have led them to his family, to the Richards. But yeah, it's explained that it's a trap, and the sooner Franklin gives up on the fantasy of curing his parents, though Valeria says, "Why can't we?" But then Moonstone decides she's leaving. And apparently Moonstone and Peter had a brief relationship. The whole devoted dad thing was actually kind of a turn on for her. Made her want to help. But the hero gig was never her thing. She wishes him luck and that she hopes he makes it. So meanwhile, the kids have been studying the remains of Beast's head. They have a radiation signature. But Peter kind of, just listen for once. There's no cure. We tried at the beginning. The cells turn before they even turn. The cells die before they even turn. You can't cure a dead organism. And he explained, Moonstone just left. Forge is dead, so it was just the three of them and Chewie now, and Nana. All he's got left is keeping them alive. And he explained that looking for the FF, the Galactus Hive, that's suicide. We get another brief flashback to when everything happened, and yeah, the FF did show up and fought. Was going to take down Spidey for trying to save Franklin and Valeria, and Just another dream, though. When he's attacked by Moonstone, who has damaged Nana and is going to go after Peter. Until with a few quick strokes, her body falls apart because of a new arrival. Blade. Apparently Blade had overheard Franklin and Valeria talk about knowing how to find the Galactus Hive. So, he asks if they got room for one more on their trip. It's where the issue ends. That's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.